we're gonna give him just 30 seconds to play a little something and then explain what this whole thing is all about.
Era noche mate frío, de madrugada el sereno, de madrugada el sereno. Era noche mate frío, porque yo tendré lo mío, para no de solo eno, para no de solo eno, porque yo tendré lo mío.
So basically, it is what it is. Welcome aboard, that Kill Bill, Boomafy. We're talking about this rapping Bubba Dynasty. Shout out to Silas, who is on the camera shooting these, meaningful 5-minute sessions. Brother, welcome.
Thank you.
Who is this man out here, creative genius, standing right in front of me?
Well, I have the great privilege and honor to get an invitation by Brother Silas to come to Uganda and spend some time with him and his youth and the participants to think about story. How do we construct story? How do we curate story? And how we disseminate stories in ways that create engagement around the work that's going on, whether that's social justice work, learning work, or work just to make us have a better understanding mutually about who we are, because we are living in a global reality, right? And we got to go to the source of the Nile River, right? And I got to put my feet in the river, and I got to put my body in the river, and I got to go under the water, right? And really feel that source. And if you think about the source, that ontological connection of who we are and who we want to be, that's the source of everything, right? There is a will here that's amazing. There is talent here that's amazing. There is the ability to blow minds and make history, right? What's needed is just some capacity. Capacity in terms of having the skills, tools, resources, acumen to put these stories in a way technologically. So what we are able to do is take these participants through an entire range of workshops. And how do you workshop a story? By coming up with your action idea, your heartbeat of your story, that by which people can then hook to you. What's that rhythm? And once you create a heartbeat of the story, how do you create a bridge so other people can join you to get you from here to there? We work through interviewing exercises. How do we actively listen? How do we actually hear what people have to say? How do we have the eyes to see and the ears to hear? And then weave what we hear through an editing process into a story that can be disseminated either via the web, either via mobile, either via the big screen. How do we think about transmedia in a way that connects us all? And then most importantly is those engagement strategies, using social media, so we're not only just transmitting our story, but we're creating transactional realities. So I learn a little bit from you, you learn a little bit from me.
A lot from you.
Well, I learned a lot from you.
And
that's the whole thing, Obumu, right? Testify and amplify in order to Obumify.
Word. So you kind of jumped next into the question I was about to ask you, like when you had Silas give you that invitation, what made you accept the invitation? Because you've been through a bunch of things going on, creative sessions going on, and not everybody that lays out an invitation to you, you accept that.
That's
so
right.
how do you accept Silas's invitation to come to Uganda and share with the indigenous in the country?
Yeah, it's probably a combination of serendipity and providence, right? In between. It wasn't exactly Silas said, hey, come here. It was Silas explaining the work that was going on. Silas explaining the passion that the youth have here. It was Silas explaining this idea of indigenous language, indigenous tools, indigenous storytelling. And I said, well, is there anything that I can do to help? And then he said yes. But it wasn't the word that he said yes, it was how he said it. Because that yes hit that primordial sound box of the soul. He pulled some strings, right? In a good way. You couldn't miss that opportunity. Had to come here and see what was going on. Offer what I can. And I would say, yeah, okay, you may have learned a lot from me, but I'm taking a lot back. So not only is the impact here in Uganda and what the youth are going to do, but how I think about how I frame story and even how I teach. And how I'm going to take that back to my students in the United States.
Jumping right into the next thing is like when you stayed a whole week out here in Uganda, 256. You've visited different places. You had the American Embassy showcasing your film that you shot in South Africa, and then you had the opportunity to showcase it in an American Embassy. But when you're going back, what have you picked up? What's that significance landmark that you've picked out from this entire stay at the Babuka Dynasty headquarters during the Obumafy?
Yeah. So from the 206 to the 256 back to the 206.
Word.
what I didn't understand, and which I'm barely understanding because I've only been here for 7 days.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot can happen in 7 days if you think about creation. But I talk about this ability to deep hang out, to get to know each other. So we're just starting and catalyzing this relationship. So there's a whole lot more work and stuff that can come out of this. But the thing that I'm going to take away and really have to spend some meditative time and reflection coming up with is, you hear the statistics about how young Uganda is. 75% is under the age of 35. I didn't really fully understand or comprehend the weight that the youth have and how fast they had to mature. How the responsibility they now have to lead and shape this country to its next
As
destination.
we wind out, because I told you it's not going to be a long interview, I want something that's full of juice so that you could get to pick out a lot from the just entire 5 minutes. So my last question would be, if Obomo, this movement that has been happening for the last 7 days, if it was a painting, what brush stroke has Scott painted on this painting?
Yeah, because I think painting is much more than a brushstroke. I want to think about that word picture and that word picture becoming reality. It's not only the stroke of how we create and curate the story of that painting, but how we can take that story in this local moment and share it. So I like to talk about a shared stroke. And if anything, I can hopefully contributed with the ability to share the indigenous stories here so they can have an impact, not to be co-opted, but to complement. So I want to think about the complementary practices of strokes.